Hey, welcome to Make It Simple, where we take complicated issues and, with the help of a friend, break them down into ideas we can understand, truths we can apply, and questions worth pondering. I'm your host, Matt Popovits, and today on the podcast, we have an old friend, writer, author, and speaker, Tanner Olson. He's here to talk about what it's like to do the work that he does. He's going to let us peek behind the curtain of building a platform for gospel communication. He's writing, he's speaking, he's doing all of that full time. And to hear his story of how he's gotten there and what he has to do to maintain this calling and this life that he's built is pretty inspiring. And so I'm looking forward to sharing our conversation with you as we kind of peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be a full-time creative and communicator in the faith space. It's going to be a really good conversation, and also a great chance to remind you that Tanner is going to be one of our main presenters at VoxCon 2027. VoxCon is a gathering for creatives and communicators in the faith space, a place for us to connect with each other, be inspired by incredibly talented people like Tanner and many others, and hone our craft and refine our voice as we share the most important message in the world. So if you've not yet registered for VoxCon 2027, which is happening in January of 2027, right here in Houston, Texas, you can do so now. Tickets are available at gotovox.com. That's GOTOVOX.com. I hope to see you there. It's going to be a fantastic lineup. Expect more guests on the podcast who are going to be presenters at VoxCon later on in this season. But for now, let's turn our attention to our conversation with poet, author, speaker, my friend and yours, Tanner Olson. Take a listen. Hey, Tanner, so good to see you. Welcome back to the show, man.
Was this my fifth time?
I think it is. Yeah.
I gotta get my
like
SNL jacket, right? Isn't that
you
got
to.
If you host it 5 times, you get a jacket.
Yeah, we should do a Make It Simple smoking jacket for the 5-timers club. Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to chat with you. You know, full disclosure, it's not been that long since we've talked or even hung out. We've spent a good chunk of the summer together over at Camp Arcadia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 2 of my favorite weeks of the year are the week that we get to help lead a teen week at Camp Arcadia. And the second week is when you're just up here with your family speaking and doing stuff, of course, but it means that we get to hang out on the porch and just catch up on life. And so this feels nice. Feels like old times already.
Good. It does. It does feel like old times. And just quick promo for those who aren't familiar with Camp Arcadia. It's a Christian camp for families, but also they host teen weeks and different events throughout the year. But primarily their programming is in the summer right on the shore of Lake Michigan. And it might be the most beautiful spot in the country during the summer months. It's pretty magical, man. And so if you're looking for a place to send your teenager in early summer or to make some memories with your family in the middle of the summer, you should check out Camp Arcadia. Yeah, you certainly should. Yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
That's right. That's right. And if you make it up to Arcadia, Michigan, you may very well see Tanner Olson walking around with his son, Judah, his dog, Pancake, and his lovely wife, Sarah, because you spend a bunch of time up there.
Yeah, because of Sarah's job, we're up here for the whole summer. So we live in Nashville for about 9 months of the year, and then for the 3 best months to be in Michigan, we get to be here. She works for Camp Arcadia, and that's not why we said all the nice things. We just say nice things about Camp Arcadia because it really is that great. And so we're up here for 3 months, and it's a very different world and life up here during the summer than the other 9 months of the year. But it's a great break and a great place for me to be as a writer because it gives me a lot of time to write and to be outside and to not be running all over the country.
Well, and I want to talk about that running all over the country, that writing and speaking, specifically today. What I want to talk about is the work that you do. And so first, for those, even though you're a member of the 5-timers club here on Make It Simple, for those who maybe have never heard of Tanner Olson, what's the quick story behind how you became a full-time poet?
Yeah, I always just say that I am an author and a poet and a speaker. I did not set out to really do any of this. I kind of just stumbled upon the career. I've always loved writing. I've always loved communicating. And I've always loved being with people and sharing hope through words. And I thought that I was going to do that as like a school teacher or a coach or a pastor. And none of those things were the things that I felt like God had specifically wired me to do. I didn't really get excited about doing those things. And then in college, I saw a poet perform, and I thought, well, maybe I could do something like that. And at the same time, I saw other people speaking on stage, telling stories, and I thought, well, maybe I could do something like that too. And then I saw other people releasing books, and I was like, well, maybe I could do that too. And so I just took all these things that I was interested in, liked, was passionate about, and kind of rolled it all into one full career. And so these days, what a lot of life looks like is I write books. So I have a children's book. I have more children's books on the way. Got a couple of books of poems and essays. I speak. I host events. I usually share the stage with a musician, and we host evenings of music and poetry at churches and schools and conferences. And so really my whole job is spreading hope through words.
Well, and the reason I ask is because I'm just, endlessly fascinated by you and the work that you do. And you know this from the times we've spent together, in Camp Arcadia and beyond, where I've just been kind of endlessly curious about how you're putting this life together, how it's working out, how you're making it all happen, and what the experience is like for you, because I'm just fascinated by it. But I also know that there's other people out there who may be inspired to say, look, what would it look like for me to dedicate my life to sharing this message of hope outside of a traditional setting of say a church? What would that look like? And I just think it's worth people's time to get their eyes on what the realities are for you and someone in your position, so that they can be equally inspired by it like I am, but then also so that maybe God can light a spark and create a vision for them to do something similar in their life. You never know. The next full-time poet, writer, speaker might just be sitting here listening right now. And if that's the case, that's right. That's right. Your competition. So one of the questions I have for you, Tanner, is I want to know how you think of yourself, because I think you occupy this interesting space between ministry and business. Like there's a small business that is getting bigger that you're running on a daily basis. That is kind of the backbone of this ministry that you have. Do you think of yourself more as a missionary, an artist, an entrepreneur, or something else?
That's a really good question. I kind of just see it as like I am a writer, and the way that I get to keep writing is by making a lot of different business decisions. And so I show up each day thinking of what stories can I tell, what poems can I craft, what events could I possibly do that can help connect people to a deeper hope, maybe meet them right where they're at, and then help put their eyes back on God. But in order to kind of do those things, you have to think in this with this like business mindset of like, well, if you want to do the main thing, and for me, the main thing is writing. If you want to do those things, you have to find ways to make money so that you can do the main thing. So there is a lot of like behind the scenes mental work, conversations, ways to make the one thing go by, like I do a whole bunch of things that people don't see. Like I ghostwrite books, I do coaching, and I do like private events, all like one-on-one stuff, all these different things in order to kind of create a cushion so that I'm able to take a month or two off at a time to work on a new project or to invest in something different. So I'm constantly changing hats. And I think that's the big thing when it comes to like running your own business or to being a creative entrepreneur of like, you're wearing so many hats. I am, and it's recently in the last few days, I've just been like very exhausted because it's been a lot of like, put on a new hat, take one off, put on a new hat, take one off. Whether it's, emailing about an upcoming event, creating social media posts, responding to emails, sending out orders, working on the next thing, having meetings about something that's happening in a year and a half from now, thinking ahead, looking, it's like all these different things that you're trying to wrap your mind around, all while taking another step forward, trusting that you are doing the right thing. Oftentimes I find myself thinking, is there an easier job out there? Like, what would that be like, and how many days could I actually do that for before quitting and coming back to this?
Yeah. There certainly is an easier job.
Yeah.
Whether or not you could stay in it for more than
I
5
couldn't.
minutes is
I
another
could.
question. Yeah.
Well, and I think like the big thing in all this too is like this is the work that I feel called to. But it's really on me to say, okay, at what level am I going to do that? Is it going to be, am I going to scale back? Am I going to focus on a few things? Or am I going to kind of keep going in the trajectory that I am going? And if so, then we have to find some healthy rhythms. We need to have some good help. And we need to find ways to make this a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, that's one of the things I marvel at is it takes an incredible amount of discipline and intentionality and planning to make the life that you've put together work. Because it is so many different things. You mentioned all of them. It's the creative stuff that you're doing of actually sitting down and writing a book, of preparing for the next event that you're going to lead. It's also managing all this voluminous social media content that you have, because you're posting stuff on all the platforms every day, it seems, multiple times a day. And you're managing kind of the back end of these speaking events, and you're also doing stuff that nobody sees, the ghostwriting. It's a ton. And so I imagine there's just an incredible amount of like discipline, intentionality that has to go into it to make this even remotely manageable for you.
I would also say that there's a measure of, and this might be, I usually say this as a joke, so I'm going to try to say it seriously, like fear of like, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. Like the fear of like, if I don't keep doing the things that I am doing, then I'll have to go get a real job where I have to wear hard pants. And I don't want to do that, And so there is like it is continuing to show up every day and to do those things. But I'm also like, like today, for example, I was basically scheduling out Substack posts that'll go out over the next month. So now I don't have to create something brand new. I have been doing that over the last month. So like now those are all going to go out. I don't have to think about it. I've given myself a little bit of breathing room. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that I try to do is to create space so that I can think, plan, and prepare. And then we just kind of do that again and again. And so one of the big things I think like to do this kind of job is to understand balance, and that change is always finding you. And you just have to learn how to change with the changes. But also like you got to understand your schedule, and you have to give yourself some grace. Like, I mean, you just mentioned like I'm posting on all the social channels just about every single day. And recently I've just been like, what would it look like to like cut back just a little bit? Because it is a lot. And I think part of that too is like being able to take a hard look at what's going on and saying, is this working? Is this healthy? And then what can you do different if there is something that you can do differently?
So I want to talk about kind of the ups and downs of this, and what are the joys and what are the pain points. And so you've kind of touched on both of those a little bit, but in greater detail, if you had to say like, what's the greatest joy of this life that you've built and are building? Like, what's something you've experienced that wouldn't have happened, or that you wouldn't get to enjoy had you stayed in a more traditional ministry role?
Well, I think for one, like I get to be up here all summer, like with Sarah for her work. Like that's one of the weird things is we both have two very different jobs that kind of make us have to be quite flexible. The flexibility of my job is incredible. I really get to work and do whatever I want whenever I want, but I have to do it quite a bit because it doesn't pay that well. So it's like, but I do have freedom in that. I would say that there's this flexibility and freedom that is wonderful. And then and with that as well is like the people that I get to meet and the stories that I get to hear. When I get off of a stage, talking, telling stories about my life, about the things that I've walked through, the hard things, the vulnerable things. I often hear stories from other people of the heaviness that they've walked through, the hope that they're holding on to. The big thing that I've learned over the years is like vulnerability will lead to more vulnerability. And so if I'm telling an honest story on the stage, someone is going to come up to me afterwards and tell me something honest from their lives as well. And there's something so beautiful about that that I wouldn't get otherwise. And I think it's because I do wear a writer hat, a poet hat, and not a a therapist hat or a pastor hat. And like, there's nothing wrong with those. I've wanted to wear both of those hats in my life, but they just didn't seem to fit. But being called a poet or a writer, it leads to different kind of conversations, and it sets a tone differently than that of a different title. So I would say like those are like that's like the beautiful, the wonderful part about this job. And I would say the other part of it is like the amount of things that you are always thinking about. And I work alone for the most part. Like it's really just me. I don't get to collaborate with a lot of friends, a lot of teammates. It's really just kind of me doing the whole thing. And then there's this pressure to continue to perform and like set the vision for the future. There is just like so much all the time. And so there are some days where I'm like, all right, I checked the bank account. We're good for a little bit. Is there going to be anything that comes in after this? Like I'm having, these internal conversations with some friends, and like we have a phone call that we need to have too about like, what does the next 20 years look like for me? 'Cause I really don't know. I basically stumbled into this career and then fell my way forward. And I think right now I'm like 13 years in. I am just now at the point where I'm like, able to take a breath and be like, okay, what just happened? What are we going to do from here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just have, and you know this because we're friends, and I just have tremendous respect for the work that you're doing, the life that you've built. And I think in part of my fascination of looking behind the scenes of how you're making all this work, for me, comes from the fact that I know that I couldn't do it. So like my background is in the arts. I studied acting and performing, and before I was called into ministry, I wanted to be a professional actor. But quite honestly, I saw the life that so many of my friends were having to go live, from job to job, from performance to performance, and not knowing if this job would lead to another one that was going to pay the bills. And there was a big part of me that I'm like, I don't have the guts for that, to be quite honest. I don't have that, to just bet on yourself constantly as you build this independent artist life. It takes a whole lot of courage. And so I have just tremendous respect for you.
Well, I appreciate that. But I will say this too, and I wanted to say this at the beginning, like for anybody who's listening, who's like, well, maybe I could do something like that. I think the start of it all obviously affects how it kind of plays out. Like for me, like when I started pursuing writing, I was right out of college. I was not married. It was just me. And so I had about, in that I graduated college in 2012, and I didn't get married until 2016. And so like I had 4 years or so of like writing and trying to wrap my mind around this. So I had started something. And then for us, like my wife and I, we didn't start a family until 2023. So we had a long time, like there was years, and there was, we have a whole episode of like, our infertility story and all this kind of stuff. But I had all these years of writing, of where it was either just me or just me and Sarah. So I wasn't having to pay, I didn't have these huge bills. I didn't have this debt that I was trying, like, so and then I honestly, like, a lot of great people said a lot of great things about me and mentored me and, brought me to their churches and invited me to do things that really helped take this dream and made it a reality, which became a career. And so there was a lot of kindness and a lot of like luck at the very beginning, and just like the seasons that I was in, and for the amount of time that I was in those seasons, allowed me to find my voice as a writer, to get up on stages, to leave the house for 10 days at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I'm curious about, Tanner, is how you protect your own soul as you do this, because that can be difficult when your work is faith.
Yeah.
So how do you keep your relationship with Jesus from becoming content production?
Yeah, the internet is kind of the worst place. I got on a little while ago. I got on earlier today, And I have a lot of people I follow, a lot of Christian content creators. And a lot of their stuff just recently has seemed like we've run out of ideas and we're just trying to sell things now. And I don't really love that. And so I think one of the ways that I try to protect my own self, my own soul in this is I try to stay off the internet for as long as possible every single day. And so if I'm getting online, it's usually to post something or to share something. It's not necessarily like I can't scroll. The more I scroll, the more that I feel like I am going crazy or losing a part of myself, my identity, my like hope. And that's not a good feeling. Which I probably shouldn't say. I probably should say spend more time online, because that's how you'll find out about my books or read my work, or stuff like that. But every morning I wake up before the house wakes up, and I usually spend time in stillness and silence and solitude, and I just don't do anything, and then I start to work. And then I have another hour or so where I'm like working, and then I'll take my dog on a walk, and I am praying, and I am trying to spend my time off of screens so that I can launch back into it and write or create or do the work that I need to do. And so I think a lot of me trying not to work is me preparing to work, of like stepping away from the computer so that I can spend time with the Lord, so that I can rest and read and prepare, because I know as soon as I sit down at my computer, I'm going to have to respond to emails, or I'm going to try to work on a new writing, story, poem, essay, whatever it may be. And I want to come to the page with like a refreshed soul, with some sort of freshness, and with not like what I often get from the internet, which is like anxiety or disgust, or like a sucked soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want that. So there is a lot, and it's definitely changed over the years too. And I think just like the way that the internet has changed, the way that social media has changed, and what that means for, and I think this kind of comes into the whole conversation of, how long can I do this for? Is, well, the internet just continues to change, and creativity looks different, and content also looks different too. And so it's just trying to figure out all of the changing things that you can't control. So I always come back to, well, what can I control? And I can control like my time, and I can control often how I show up to things, and what have I put into my body before all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think the local church had a part to play in you being able to step into this calling? And if so, what did your church do that made it safe for you to envision this for possibility for yourself? Or maybe just in general speak about whether or not the church does a good job of making space for artists. And if we're not, what could we do better?
I would say that the church is getting better at making space for artists, in the same way that the church is getting better at talking about mental health. I think, over the last 10 years, it was like, well, the church isn't saying a lot about mental health. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of talking about it now, or at least a lot of the churches that I seem to be connected with. The church that I grew up going to, I don't think they didn't really ever have a big emphasis or focus on the arts. But they also weren't like against it, and there weren't a lot of people doing poetry when I was growing up. It wasn't like, we're having the poet come to our church, like that wasn't a thing that was happening. Now it's happening around the country a little bit. And there's more of an emphasis on art, on singer-songwriters, on like painters, on all these different artistic avenues that hopefully can invite people to connect with God in a different kind of way. I do think that the church is getting better at it, and I hope it's not just like my algorithm, but I see more churches that are, trying to train up young leaders as artists and as creatives. The pastors that I know, they seem to be looking for the people in their churches who can do something artistically, and to champion that and to care for them, whether that's like, anything from ceramics to poetry to devotional writing to like, you're a really good reader. Why don't you read the text in front? Like finding people who have this interest in creativity, and how can we explore that and encourage their talents. And I think really that's like the big thing that the church can do is they can create space for the arts to flourish, and then to encourage those in their community to share. One of the coolest things that I get to do is I get to go to a lot of churches, and usually it's me and a musician, and we'll do an evening of music and poetry. And occasionally, the church will be like, hey, we have a musician or a poet. Do you mind if they share something too? And the answer is always like, yes, like we definitely want that. One church, though, it was a church in Des Moines. They said, hey, we're having these two artists come in, and we want to see your art as well. So they set up an art gallery, and anyone from their church who is a creative of any kind was able to put something up, whether it was like a painting or photos or ceramics, or like, I think That's one cool. kid even just did like Legos. I was like, yes, this is, and he was so That's proud really cool. of it. Like, you should be, and so it's like seeing like we've all been created by a creator to create. And so like, why don't we showcase more of that? So that my long-winded answer is saying like, I didn't, from the like early on in my life, I didn't really see creativity being highlighted in my church. I also wasn't great at paying attention because I was a little kid. But now I see it more and more. And maybe that's because, often when I go to a church to visit, I'm like speaking at it, or they're doing something with creativity. But that means that they're doing something with creativity.
Well, I think that's a huge part of this. I think one of the biggest things churches can do to be environments that nurture creativity and make it safe and encourage young artists is by hiring, bringing in those faith-based artists that are all around us, creating space for them and letting their people see their art there and see this as a possibility. So I think those who are bringing you and Blake and you and Matt in to do this, they are making it safe for people to be artists. They're setting up this environment where people can come and see like, oh, this is a thing. This is possible. Like, you can do this. Yes. And then give them opportunity within their own congregation to do it. Right. That's a huge part of it.
Thing. I mean, it's the coolest thing. Like, I have a good friend. His name is Kyle, and he's told me that his one of his philosophies when it came to parenting was just to give his kids different experiences. And so I kind of took that to heart as like my career is like, when I get to go to these places, like I am giving students and even like parishioners, like people in the church too, of like, this is something else that is happening in the world. And you can be part of it too if you would like to. But I love getting to visit schools, reading silly poems, my children's book, and it just shows kids like this is another thing that you can do with your wild and precious life. Like, you can be a writer. And I got to tell you, like I just spoke in at a event in Michigan, a youth conference, and I have like 3 or 4 kids message me and be like, "Hey, I want to do what you do. Tell me how to do it." And so obviously I can't respond to them because that's creating more competition. So no, I'm just kidding. No, but it's like telling these, like, here's what I do. Here's what I've done. Here's what I think that, you can do as well. And I do think that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to have a lot more poets out there sharing their work. And I think that's a cool thing.
I think so. I agree with you. So on that note, if a 22-year-old comes to you and says, "Hey, man, I think God is calling me to speak, write, create, build something," what advice would you give them? What would you tell them to do in their first year of going all in?
Yeah, I would probably be like, "Are you sure?" Are you sure I think it's like, I would say that it's very important that you remain prayerful and that you remain consistent in like your prayers and in your relationship and your rest, but also in the things that you are creating. One of the huge things, the important things, and it takes years to kind of find this, is like finding your voice as a writer. And the only way to find it is to start. Like my best advice is really just start. Watch what other creators you're interested in, watch what they are doing, and then kind of mimic what they are doing. Don't steal what they're doing, but see what they're doing. And can you do that? And then what feels comfortable and right to you? And then go for it. I think the hardest thing though is one of the things that you really, you can't teach, it's just like, you can't really care what other people think. You really have to be sold out for the thing and saying like, this is the thing that I believe I was created for. I know that it's not going to be for everyone, but I promise you it's going to be for someone. And I can't tell you the number of times like I've had to just remind myself of like, hey, what you are doing is not going to be for everyone, but it's going to be for someone. And so you just got to kind of remain confident that this is the thing that God has called you to do. And so I'd also encourage them to be like, well, you're going to want to like create something that shows people who you are and what you do, whether that's a website, whether that's an Instagram account, whether that's a Substack. Oftentimes I find myself talking with people who are like, well, I don't want to do social media. And I have to very kindly say, well, good luck being a writer, because this is the real world, buddy. This is 2026. This is kind of what you have to play the game. And a lot of writing and creating, and this from acting, it is playing a game. And there are going to be some things that you are not super comfortable with. Like, right. I'm not comfortable promoting myself. I'm not comfortable talking about myself as a writer, and you should get my books. But if you want to do those things, you kind of have to talk about doing those things. That's right. Yeah. And so it's, how can you also show up as your full self and then be able to go home with that same person? Like, I go up on stages, I speak, I do my thing, I share my poetry, I tell my stories, and you've seen me. Like, I am not trying to be someone other than who I am.
That's right.
I have tried. It does not go well. It doesn't go well on stage. It doesn't go well after I get off the stage. And so to be able to show up as your full self with somebody who you are comfortable with, confident as, because then when you get off the stage, you still got to be with that person. Like, you don't get to trade out personalities. It's still going to be you. So I don't know. That's one of those questions where I feel like I could go off on for a very, very long time. I was just a student just emailed me, and he was saying, when did you realize that God called you to be a writer? And he's a high school student, and he's kind of searching, like, okay, what am I going to do with this life? And I reminded him, I was like, it's a big life, it's a big long life, and I am not just called to be a writer. I get to do a lot of other things too. Writing is the thing that you know me for, but I get to be a husband and a dad and a friend and, all these different things as well. And so I reminded him, like, that's just like one of the things. So don't just set your sights on that one thing. Like, set your sights on something more. Like, my goal in life is like, I just want to be faithful to God. And along the way, I want to write. I want to raise a family. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good friend. But I want to be faithful to God. Like, that is the thing that I am aiming myself towards. And along the way, I'm going to write. And I'm going to go play trucks with Judah after this. All of those things.
Yeah. One of the things I so appreciate you, of the many things, Tanner, is just how consistent you are as a person. I mean, you are very much the same person on the stage as you are off the stage. There's nothing really performative or pretentious about you as a communicator or a creative. You're very naturally yourself on the stage, in the same way that you are very comfortable in your own skin in a one-on-one conversation. And most people, I would say myself included, they are different when they're up front than when they're one-on-one. But I haven't experienced that with you. So is that something you've had to work hard to maintain, of this kind of being the same person up front as you are in every other part of your life? Or maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you do feel like there's a persona that takes over when you're in front of a crowd.
I would say, like, when I do get up in front of a crowd, like, I definitely feed off of the people in the environment, and like, this is what we're here for. There's definitely that. But I don't know how to be anyone other than me. And I don't ever want to be someone that I'm not. Like, I definitely have tried that before. And so I think I've spent more time trying to show up as just like, as me, rather than this like performance poet or this like incredible speaker. And like, I just like, that's just not me. And maybe there's this like, a punk rock side of my soul. And there definitely is, that is like, I won't do that. Like, and I just don't think I can. And I think that's just really honestly how God has wired me. And there is something in my mind that just is like, just go be yourself, you know? And like, you've seen me speak before. Like I have my notes. I can't memorize anything to save my life. I might get all twisted when I get up in front of people if I don't have I mean, I still have fun, but like, I just like, this is who I am. And it helps me when it comes to like I feel less anxious then. Like, I don't get nervous when I go on stage anymore, because like, I mean, I get a little nervous. Everyone gets a little nervous, but like, I feel very free once I get up there, because I know that I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just trying to give you something honest, something true, hopefully something that points you to God. Because in my life, and you're one of these people, the people who show up like that, I leave feeling changed and more connected to the hope that I confess. And that's really what I want. If this whole life is just one big gift, I also want to be a good gift giver in this gift of a life. And so I think by me showing up as just Tanner Olson, just the guy who writes poetry and tells stories and hopefully makes a good joke every now and again, like, I hope I can give you something good along the journey. But I also like, man, I know that I'm not going to get remembered, and I'm so happy about that. So like, while I'm here, I just want to do a pretty good job.
Yeah. Well, there are, I'm sure, countless other people alongside of me who are jealous in a good way of your natural, non-anxious presence, in all settings. But I know that that's hard fought for you. And that's the result of some deeper work that you've done and a deep faith that you have. You mentioned, just to rewind just for a second, you mentioned kind of playing that game and building that platform. What was the first brick in the platform for you that helped you get established? What was it? Was it Instagram? Was it the social media piece?
Yeah, Instagram was very different than it is now. When I first got started, it was a lot easier for writers to connect with an audience and to find an audience. And so for a while, for a couple of years, I was just posting things online, and it was getting seen and shared all over the place. And all right now, I can't share anything and it gets seen. It's just like I still put stuff out there, but I would say less than 1% of the people who follow me actually get to see my work most days, which is not great at all. Which is also kind of leads to the conversations of like, well, what can I keep doing in the future? So Instagram had been helpful, and it's still helpful relatively, a little bit. But Substack is another great place right now. But I would tell anybody, like, if you really want to be a writer, if you want to be like a creative, if you want to be an author, like, you really want to build an email list, and you really want to be able to have space in your calendar to be able to speak on stages, so that you can get face-to-face time with people who might want to engage with your work, whether that's a book or an album or whatever it is. But you really can't beat face-to-face, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I spend a lot of time throughout the year on the road. Not only do I think that the work that I do translates best live, but it's also because, like, that's where the memories are made, and that's where, like, the experience really happens. And I love being able to meet people and to spend time with them, and to be welcomed into their church or into their community and say, here's some things that I've learned. And then, you've been to one of my shows before. It's basically poetry and stand-up comedy and storytelling. Mm-hmm. And it's I have the most fun with it. And then afterwards I get to go eat, chips and queso with the pastor. That's fun. It's great for me.
That's a good gig if you can get it.
It is a lot of fun, and it's also like, and you know this, the role of the creative, of the creator, is like you basically go and you break pieces of yourself off and you give them to people, and then you leave, and so you kind of leave feeling like, I at least that's how I view it. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I leave feeling exhausted, because at the same time I'm also hearing stories from people, and they're breaking off bits and pieces of their life and they're handing it to me. But I mean, what an honor and a gift it is that I not only get people will actually listen to me, but that they will invite me to listen to them as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah,
what a gift indeed.
It's a big job. I was at this youth gathering in Michigan a couple weeks ago, and this kid was like, "Do you think like high school Tanner would be proud of current Tanner?" And I
Great
said,
question.
That was a really good question. And I was like, I think high school Tanner would be very confused about how did we get here? And then I think once current Tanner explained it to high school Tanner would be like, okay, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. I can see how we got there. And I don't really know what else I will do with my life. So it's been another story. I was sitting with a friend from college, and she's known me for as long as I have been calling myself a writer. And she was like, "Did you ever think that you would get to where you are?" And I said, "Did you ever think that I would get to where I was?" And she went on to tell me how her and a bunch of her friends were talking about me at one point, and were like, "We have no idea what this guy is doing. Like like he thinks he's going to be a writer." Like, yeah, right. But I say that because if somebody is listening, someone's going to say something about you.
That's right.
Or someone's going to be like, who does this person think he is? And for me, my answer was always, I think this is the thing God has created me to do. I'm going to go find out. And I found out.
Yeah, you have, and we're all the better for it. And I'm thankful that you have kept going, and that God has given you the gift of resilience, along with many other gifts, to just keep pressing forward. Because you're a blessing to many, and I'm very, very thankful that you're doing what you're doing, and that I get to call you a friend. Thanks for letting us peek behind the curtain today. It's fascinating to me, and I know really fascinating to those who are listening as well. I'm going to close with this question. At the end of the day, Tanner, what is the simplest truth that you have learned about God from your work as a creative?
God is, I just wrote this, so this is not, I've been thinking about it for a while. God is, but I want to make sure that I get it. I want to make sure I get it right, because if not, it'll be not good. Because that question is like the thing that I think I've been rolling around in my head for quite a long time. God is often quieter than I want and kinder than I expect.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Quieter than I want and kinder than I expect.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can say he is also slower than you want, or, more grace-filled than I expect. I will spend my whole writing career trying to figure out this hope. And I will never figure it out. But I think it's a worthy pursuit of trying to put into language the hope that God offers, and the love that we have through Christ.
Yes, it is. Amen. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing this time with us, Tanner. It is always a joy.
I'll be back.
Yes, you will, for number 6.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Tanner Olson. 2 things I need you to do before you go. Number 1, I need you to hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts, where you get your podcasts from. hit subscribe and make sure that you get the latest episode of Make It Simple. And then the second thing I need you to do is really consider, if you haven't already, coming to VoxCon 2027. You can get your tickets, find out more at gotovox.com. We hope to see you there. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back with more from Make It Simple.